Brian May's ode to only children everywhere. Sail away, sweet sister. Next on Crown Jewels. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to PLD Projects. Welcome back to Crown Jewels. I'm your host, PLD. As always, I'm taking you on a journey through the entirety of the Queen catalog, song by song, version by version, as we figure out which version is the best version, or the titular Crown Jewel version, as well as give you some history, some notes, some quotes. And we also see if this song slides into my top 10 Queen-related tracks of all time. This week's song, Sail Away, Sweet Sister. To the Sister I Never Had, written by Brian May. We have three different versions we are listening to this week. We have the 1980 album version from the game. We have the Take One with guide vocal released in 2011 on the deluxe edition of the game. A nice, cool version featuring Brian on a guide vocal, as the title would suggest. And finally, we do have a bootleg version, Brian May solo, live in 1998 from Newcastle. So three different versions. Which one's going to be the crown jewel? Let's get into some notes and quotes first. As previously mentioned, written by Brian, featuring Brian on lead and backing vocals, acoustic and electric guitars, as well as synthesizer. Features Freddie Mercury on piano, backing vocals, and bridge vocals. He does the lead vocal of a middle eight section. Features John Deacon on bass, Roger Taylor on drums and backing vocals. This song was never played live by Queen, but Brian decided to pull it out of the mothballs for a few occasions during his Another World Tour in 1998. And then he put it back into the mothballs, not to ever come out again, at least not yet. I'm kind of surprised he didn't bring it out for the Carrie Ellis Tour or even for the Adam Lambert era, but unfortunately, no. Interesting aside, Axl Rose, big Queen fan, did used to sing a snippet of this song before going into Sweet Child of Mine back during the Use Your Illusion tours. Axl has been a big Queen fan, so it's not surprising that he would sing a deeper cut. All right, let's get to some quotes about the track before we start listening. Brian May, in the studio with Redbeard in 1989, said, "A lot of people said it would have made a single at the time, but there wasn't really room. There always was this thing about me that I sort of felt that I'd missed out on life by being an only child. I thought that explained some of my endless running around looking for the right woman to sort of share my problems or whatever. I guess it's got to do something with that." Roger Taylor basically stated in the same interview, "That's a pretty song. Maybe Brian should have called it Ballad of an Only Child or something." Brian continued on in 2003 on his website, "This one has always been a favorite of mine. I wish it could have been a single at the time, but really it would not have worked to put something out as on a single on which Freddie was not the principal singer. Of course, he does sing the middle eight, and beautifully too. The solo in Sail Away was intended to be Killer Queen revisited in a different way, for reasons which are obvious to me but do not need going into. The solo starts the same way, on one guitar, and then is enjoined by two others, which added bell-type harmonies a la Mantovani, which I think I talked about elsewhere. In other words, the first guitar hangs on, and each guitar that joins in adds a harmony. The three guitar melodies go on for just a few notes, and then there is an interplay of bells going upward in pitch rather than downwards as in Killer Queen, and there are five of them, and they step in very quickly. Now four of them keep playing in harmony until the end, when they all become bound into a tight set of ascending chords leading back into the final chorus." Also on his website in 2003, when talking about playing piano, he specifically said, "For the record, as far as I remember, I played piano on Doing All Right, Father to Son, Now I'm Here, Dear Friends, Teo Toriade, All Dead, All Dead, notably not on Sail Away, Sweet Sister. I got Freddie to learn it and play it with Roger and John from the backing track. I wanted his marvelous rhythm and percussive feel on piano." And you know I've always talked about Freddie's marvelous and percussive feel on the piano in this podcast. Well, let's go listen to these three versions. How do we do that? Well, it's easy. You go into the show notes, you'll see a Google Doc with a bunch of links on it, which will take you to versions on YouTube that we're going to listen to. So when I tell you, you will pause me, click on the proper link, listen to it, come back, and I'll talk about it. So let's start right away. First up, the album version of the game. Click back, and I'll be back soon.
Babe, are you feeling sore? Ain't no use in pretending.
And there you have it. That is a song that really harkens back a bit more to a classic Queen sound. I made it clear in the top of this album, back when Play the Game started, that we were heading into a new direction, a more pop, crisp pop sound. It does have some moments here. Play the Game specifically did have a more classic Queen song, But we were getting into different areas with Another One Bites the Dust, with Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Some sparse, some rhythmic, some pop oriented. This kind of feels like a pretty proper Queen ballad with some great orchestrations in it. I got to be honest with you, the MVP of this song is John Deacon. And I've been saying that more and more. I really feel like on my journey, my own journey through this podcast, I'm really coming to appreciate John in many, many ways, in many more ways than I even did before. And I always did appreciate him. John's bass really makes the song. It sounds like it's a crying almost. It's like this wandering bass line that just kind of like cuts through everything else. Like this nice little bass of rhythm, bass of like synth sounds, drums, and but then he's just kind of playing his own thing out there. Not just the bass of the song. He's actually playing almost like this wandering melody, which is, I don't know. It's kind of almost like I said. It sounds like it's crying. It's very emotional. I really appreciate that throughout. So I did give massive props for John for this one. Great bass playing. Great bass playing. Has some good big chorus, power chords, of course. And Brian's in fine voice. I usually like him in the more folk stuff, and he starts getting a little bit away from himself when it comes to some of the power songs. But I think he sounds pretty good here. Now, I don't often talk about lyrics, and I probably should talk about lyrics more. I'm usually more about letting the music come over me, and that's what Queen's great at. But the band is actually pretty good at lyrics. Freddie and Brian, I would say specifically, are better at lyrics. Roger's lyrics can get a bit ridiculous at times. I really do like this chorus, though. The sail away, sweet sister, sail across the sea. Maybe you'll find somebody to love you half as much as me. It's a very emotive song. It goes along with the lyrics, with the melody very, very well. A very powerful song overall. I will say that. It's got a nice acoustic picking during the second chorus again. But again, I feel like it's John's bass that really does it. That syncopated bass that John does in the second verse, it's like, it kind of adds to that rhythmic background, which is really, really great. Even though this is a melodic song, the rhythmic background really helps it out, I feel. Some great backing harmonies in the second chorus. The middle 8 section is wonderful. And Freddie's vocal in there, that, could throw it away too soon. They build that way too soon part. Really powerful vocals. Very typical Queen. Good to hear in this song and on this album. It's a very understated guitar solo in my eyes, but then again, so is Killer Queen. Like he said in his quotes, he tried to make it kind of like a Killer Queen Part 2. Has some great typical orchestrations as it builds, and I do notice how it went up at the end, builds into that final powerful chorus, where Brian's vocals gets really good. That no matter what you do, it's really kind of really you can feel that shattered emotion in there as well. The only thing I would maybe cut a little bit, there's like a minute long outro. The bass is great in here as well, and that's the only reason I would say not cutting it. But it's kind of this emotional, there's wave sounds, there's John's bass kind of playing in and out. It does meander a little bit after the whole thing. But at the same time, that bass kind of makes it worth listening to. So that's a great version, though. It's a great song. I love it. It's one of my favorite from the albums. Brian just knows his way around a power ballad, that's for sure. All right, let's move on then. Next to the Take One with guide vocal. You find that link and come back for more.
1, 2,
turn me down a bit.
4.
And as it says, Take One with guide vocal, much, much earlier in development. Obviously, it's very loose. The band is not quite tight at all. Not tight at all, really, quite honestly. I got the Freddie count in. Brian doesn't have lyrics yet. Some of the lyrics are there, but not a lot of them. So a lot of it's kind of dee-doo-doo-doos, dee-doo-das. So it's even more of a guide vocal than just the normal. I'm just going to sing it to let you have something to go off of. No, this is really kind of like, I have the melody, kind of. But it's actually kind of an interesting melody because he actually does a little bit of different things with it. He kind of goes higher at points, especially in the choruses, that he would eventually. It's an interesting take on things. I kind of would love to hear Brian do that with the finished version to see how that would have sounded. But I also kind of get why he doesn't do it, because the version he ended up with is probably the perfect version for the song itself. Some of the lyrics are kind of funny. I think it sounded like he said, "I wish the hell it was me" at one point, which would have worked, but not quite what he was probably going for. The bass is obviously nowhere near as developed. So John definitely... I feel like John finished the song before everybody else, and then it was like, I just want to make something fun happen here, and just kind of experimented for a while. The second verse is extended a little bit, but instead of getting that middle 8, so no Freddie vocal there at all, it just kind of jams out a little bit and cuts off. I hear that Freddie in the background. I think I know it perfectly now. It's just a great curiosity to listen to. Like I said, Take One. You don't get to hear that very often. So Take One, you get to just hear this different version of the song. We see where it goes. We can see where it started to a degree. Very interesting to hear, if not probably going to be a proper crown jewel, because quite frankly, it's not a finished version. So how can it be the best version, right? Um, I should also mention here, there is a convention demo. You've heard me talk about these before, and in some tracks which have no alternates except for the convention demos, I might bring them up. I don't like to put them in my crown jewels, though, because they're always taped recordings that the band's archivist Greg Brooks would have played at fan conventions, with him over the top saying, property of Queen Productions. They're never great sound recordings, but they are always interesting curiosities. There is one out there if you do want to find it. I'll put the link in the Google Sheet for you. It's basically an instrumental take. It's definitely much, much closer to the end. Slightly different, but definitely further along than take one. But I'm not going to talk about it more than that. You can listen to it yourself. It's actually not too different, except for the fact that it's an instrumental. All right, one more to listen to here. 1998 Newcastle, the Brian May Band during the Another World Tour. Let's listen to that and come back, and we will finish this up. Okay, you know what I'm going to say first off. It is a bootleg. It is an unreleased recording, so it's not going to be the greatest quality. So with that in mind, what does this version sound like? It's definitely a much more live version. By that, I mean it's much more of a up-tempo, not up-tempo, but more rocking version as the band tends to get when live. Does not really have that fluid wandering bass. It's not John Deacon playing it, of course. That's definitely a difference. We do get a full chorus backing vocals from the get-go, so no real build there. The harder second chorus is interesting to me. It feels like it's even more power chordy and more Brian riffing and ramming on that one. Brian does do the middle eight vocals here, so he does all of the lead vocals at this point, including the high notes, which I was kind of impressed with. The guitar solo is nice and ripping in this one. Again, it feels a little more rocking out. Some great vocals by Brian at the end, even though it sounds strained. It very much works for the emotions of the song, so I really appreciate when he goes for it there. And then we have this kind of slow down ending that doesn't have quite as long an outro, but it does have the outro. I was kind of surprised by that. I thought that'd be an easy thing to cut, but they decided to let it go just a little bit to catch that vibe. All right, let's move on then to the rest of the episode, rating, ranking, all that good stuff. On a scale of 1 to 11, because I always turn things up to 11 here on PLD Projects, what do I give Sail Away, Sweet Sister? I'm going to give this one a 9.5. I really like this. This is really where Queen starts getting a little more experimental in the 80s as far as pop, as far as keyboards, as far as new wave, as far as getting away from their old rock and roll type of roots to a degree. This really feels like a classic Queen ballad that could have gone anywhere on the albums for sure. As far as I'm concerned, anyway. I love Brian getting lead vocals while Freddie gets that middle eight. That's a good thing for me. So 9.5 is solid. However, it does mean it doesn't slide into my top 10 of all time. As you know by now, all of my top 10 are at 10.5 or 11. So it takes a really, really powerful song to penetrate that top 10. Well, let's see which version is going to be the crown jewel this week. And if you've listened to my commentary so far, I don't think it's going to be much of a surprise. Let's go from lowest to highest. Crown jewel, of course, being the highest. Lowest one, Early Take with guide vocal. Great curiosity, wonderful thing to listen to, especially if you're a big fan of the band. But at the end of the day, it's not a complete song. It's a really early version, so that can't be a crown jewel. It can't be a best of. So we're going to put that at the number 3 slot. So it's either the album version or the Newcastle version. Now, a lot of Queen fans like the live versions better, and I understand that. I'm one of them sometimes, quite frankly. But in this case, I think I'm going to put Live in Newcastle 1998 at number 2, just because, A, it's an unreleased recording, so it's not the greatest recording. And also, I love the John's bass, which is absent, really, from Newcastle. John's bass in the album version, my crown jewel, the album version. John's bass, Freddie singing the middle eight. It kind of became a no-brainer for me. This is not a very difficult one, as some of them are at times. So that will do it for that. It is the album version of Sail Away, Sweet Sister that is this week's crown jewel. There we go. All right, well, next week, stay tuned. Coming soon. It's coming soon. Roger Taylor's kind of new wavy, funky rhythm, kind of a rhythm track. Features Freddie and Roger on co-lead vocals, kind of more Freddie than Roger, but you'll find that out. That's next week. That's not this week. That's next week. So stay tuned for that. I want to thank you guys so much for listening and staying tuned and staying with me. If you like this, hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you're listening on audio, give us that 5-star review. Leave some comments either way. Try to help us fight the almighty algorithm. It is a very terrifying battle we always have to fight. If you want to help out further, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/PLDprojects, where you can get early versions of Crown Jewels. I do record these usually about a week or so in advance, and I put them up as soon as I can for patrons at a certain tier. It got such great people over there, Austin Goodell and Brett at Buckingham, great crew. Come join us. And if not, I understand if you can't. I know times are tight for me too. But do your best to share, like, subscribe. Just try to get more people to listen in, and let's build this community out. All right. All right, well, we'll see you next week, guys. I can't wait. As always, God save the queen. Bye now.